Hello, everybody. Welcome back to season 2, episode 2 of another Your Bold Voice. I've got one of my favorite persons in the whole wide world. It's so cool how Karyl and I, hey, we're the double K's today. Um,
Ooh,
yeah, I just want
I
It's
like
really
it.
cool how Karyl and I met. And the moment we met, it was an instant
Yeah.
connection. And it's just we have one of those phenomenal relationships, which I'll get into here shortly. But welcome back, everybody. We're here, LinkedIn Live, Your Bold Voice, and I'm bringing on another fascinating female who does the comfort zone busting, risk taking, and owns her bold voice on her terms. And it's been
Mhm.
fun to watch Karyl do that term bold voice thing over the last couple of years since we first originally met. So I am not going to hold back any longer here. I'm going to introduce Insight Karyl. Helping others shine is Karyl's passion, and the Michigan native puts those around her at ease with her frank and fun communication style. I want to highlight the frank and fun communication style. Your love for sharing positive insights about first impressions, professional image, and personal branding has led her to become a sought after corporate speaker and image consultant. With a business background, in management, marketing, and sales, Karyl is a pro at stoking a fire within her audiences and private clients. An advocate for confidence, Karyl guides individuals through an exploration of what makes them unique while empowering, educating, and encouraging them through her image impact brand programs, a powerhouse combination of professional image and personal brand. Practicing what Karyl preaches, she hones her own craft as a member of the National Speakers Association, serves on the board of the NSA Michigan chapter. She's also a member of the Association of Image Consultants International and the largest organization of image professionals worldwide. Karyl, I'm interviewing you today instead of you interviewing me.
Yay! Well,
Welcome.
thank you so much for the invitation to join you. I'm excited and I love, love, love your bold voice. Love it. Love it.
Thank you. Thank you. And yes, I love, love, love your image, your confidence, and how you really do make women shine through that first impression. And that first impression is so, so important. And before we move on right here, Karyl, any further, I don't want to be rude to everybody that is logging in to LinkedIn Live. Everybody that is joining us, thank you for joining us. I see you logging in. Just know that I am not going to interrupt our conversation to acknowledge all of you. I'm going to focus on Karyl. However, before we wrap up, we'll swing back around if there's any questions or comments you want to give to Karyl. But I see someone on here today. I think I'm feeling a little pressure from Lisa. I don't know if I'm like going, whoo, there's some pressure. I laugh at
Lisa knows us well, so
she does.
we can zen out.
Yeah, I know. She does. She does. So, anyways, that first impression. Let's talk about that. That first impression, because you really do. You take a hold of your clients. I've seen because I know a lot of your clients, and
Yeah.
I get the pleasure of seeing the progression on social media. But that first impression is so damn important. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about that. What can happen if we don't have that good first impression, and how do we pull together that good first impression?
Yeah, it's really a make it or break it situation. And one of the things that people often forget is that first impressions will happen no matter how much we say they don't happen for us, they do. It's happened the moment that we popped on today and everybody saw us here on LinkedIn Live. Something went through their brain. Now, will it stick? Probably. Can we overcome it if it wasn't great? Hopefully. But really, what people need to remember is that first impressions don't just happen in person, but they do happen in this little box we now live in called Zoom or LinkedIn Live. They happen in our photos. They happen in our content. They happen in our videos. They happen everywhere. And right now, your digital presence and the first impression you're making digitally is huge. And that's one of the things that people are a little bit slow to catch up on. And I would highly recommend that you really take a look at what people find. So, back to the question of what can go wrong, what can go right. Well, what can go right is that you appear in whatever medium that you appear in, and people see you and feel instantly what you're hoping that they feel, right? Essentially what's happening is your first impression is your silent message to other people. It happens quickly, whether it's 3 seconds, 7 seconds, 30 seconds. There's all different studies that support those things. But if what you are hoping people think about you when they first see you or come across you isn't landing, you risk losing clients. You risk your competition taking over those clients for you. You risk not getting the advancement at work. You risk not having people think that you are as valuable as you are. So, it literally can be money in or out of your pocket based on a first impression. And that's a little bit harsh to hear, but it really is the reality of our situation. Now, thankfully, here's my caveat. Thankfully, the world is changing, and expectations and assumptions and judgments are changing a bit, right? So we're not stuck in, the 80s where, you had to wear nylons and a skirt, right? We're not stuck there anymore.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah. That might have been the last time I had on nylons and a skirt. I don't know. But anyway, the point being is that you really have to take charge of your own story, and you have to be willing to get a little raw with yourself and see yourself the way that other people are seeing you, because the reality is that everybody's perception is different, and their perception is reality. And if you are not matching their perception, that might be okay, but it might not be okay. And you have to determine what your goals are and what you're willing to do to maybe meet people halfway, or maybe shift so that perception gap is closed, or maybe change who you're trying to talk to and attract, because they're just not the right people for you. So no easy answer, but something that is absolutely worthwhile to invest in yourself in is making sure that whatever you want people to think and feel and remember about you, that you're doing a good job with reflecting that.
Yeah, you definitely, Karyl, you really walk your talk and talk your walk with your image and your branding. I mean, you beautifully embrace it. I'm a proponent of first impressions are they really true. And I'm not saying that people cannot evolve and grow from a first impression, but boy, a first impression, really lasts. Here's what I love when I'm dealing with women, and it's first impression, and maybe they're just getting the choo-choo train going or whatever the case may be, and they're showing up a little verschimmeled or discombobulated. Here's a really good way of those first impressions, so that someone like you or I don't walk away and go, wow. Okay, practice does not make perfect. Practice makes better, in my opinion.
100%.
Just owning it and just being very transparent and vulnerable, like you're saying, a little bit of that rawness of going, hey, this is my first time, or like you said, we are now we went from an in-person climate to a Zoom climate to now there's some hybrid going on and some dancing. I have been on presentations over the last, I don't know how long we've been here, a year and a half, and keynote women presenting keynote, and they're fumbling with the technology. Now, here's the deal. Technology is funky. It can be our best friend, and it could be the worst enemy. I would love to break my window once in a while, my technology, but practice the presentation. Don't overly practice before you get to your commitment, but practice that presentation. So hence that first impression is not looking like you're so unprepared.
Yes. Yeah. And that's part of first impressions too, right? I mean, they happen quickly. They happen at a glance, but they continue, maybe not the first impression, but the impression and the lasting impression continues on as you're speaking. And if you're not prepared, or like you said, overly prepared, where like everything is rote, that can weigh heavily too on what people remember about you. and that's where you start getting into not just first impressions, but image and personal brand. What are you leaving people with at the end of the moment? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And, and again, it's all about that, that image and how we show, how we show up. I
Yeah.
mean, there's times where I'm running around town. I've got on my torn up, ripped up baseball cap, which a few of you have seen on social media. That's a trademark, that hat. And, my husband's like over here, can't you get rid of the hat? No, I have a bald head. So I have a hard time things being, so I hang on to those things,
Yeah.
and I'm out running around and I might not have makeup on, which I sometimes can get away because I have glasses, but it is what it is. I'm comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable with it. I don't always need to have completely done. I even put a necklace on today because I knew I was interviewing Karyl.
Oh,
oh, and my jewelry.
It is my downfall, the jewelry.
I'm horrible at accessorizing. But with all that being said, yes, that first impression lingers. I'm thinking of that like with a new restaurant when you're walking in, and especially as business owners, as women, we have got a lot of stuff stacked up against us. We've got society and the BS stacked up against us. We've got other people's opinions that sometimes we tend to take on, which we have no business taking on. We have a lot of that stacked up. So we really do need to practice and be prepared when we are showing up. And if you're listening to what Karyl and I are saying around this, if you're not quite sure where to turn, where to go, reach out. I mean, hire somebody, reach out, get in a group, get a tribe together. I'm big about tribe and community and pull them together. I really am, so Karyl, tell me your most biggest, boldest, beautiful move you have done, either recently or in the past.
Oh gosh, my biggest, most beautiful, boldest move. Oh gosh, there's so many. I will tell you that I'm kind of that person that jumps in and then says, okay, well, I better figure it out. And one of the things that I did recently was I in my work with my clients, I was teaching them and giving them the power to put themselves on social media and shout out their expertise. But what I was finding is that their jobs and their careers were kind of getting in the way. Now that didn't negate the need for doing it, but it hindered their time in which they had to do it. So one day I just thought, you know what, I'm going to put this program together and I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to see what happens. And it turned into just a fantastic program where it's video based. And from that video, I'm able to showcase the thought leadership of my clients and then create assets and articles and blogs that support that. And that was a pretty bold move on my part, because for me, it was something that I do for myself, but I wasn't doing that part of it for my clients. I was doing all the work up to it, and I was teaching them how to do it on their own. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to drop it out there, and I'm going to say, let's see what happens. So that was probably the latest thing that that really was not really a planned thing, but I saw a need and I thought, yeah, we're going to do it. So we did it, and it's taken off, and it's been fantastic. In the past, probably the biggest, boldest move I did was to start this business, because I started it from just scratch, from an idea, from watching somebody else open an image consulting business, not even understanding what it was, realizing that everything I've done in the past really is helpful for it. But it was just brand new. It was such a brand new idea. So I'm all for a bold move. I am for a bold move, guys. And one of the things that I see very often is that people are planners and not doers. And it's okay to be a little bit of both. And an early mentor of mine said to me, you often know more than you think you know. So just do it. And the details will fall into place. You will figure out the steps in order to make yourself successful, but don't not do things because it's not perfect. Do it and build it and adjust. So
Yeah, and there's always adjustments and evolution and evolving as we are growing. I mean, the tweaking of our avatar, our ideal client, or maybe, it's this beautiful certification that you hold. There's
Mhm.
always, expansion within
Yeah,
there of things that not just a certification can give you, Karyl, but that other certifications can. And,
hmm,
learning and so, I did that with my internet radio station. I've never been to broadcasting school. I just saw
yeah,
a need. I felt a need with what I was going through, and then saw a need with other female entrepreneurs. Hence, we launched that radio station, and boy, was I flying. I mean, there was a little bit of planning and preparation, and then I just jumped in. And it was one of the most beautiful 5 years of my life. It absorbed me because we were
hmm.
24/7, 365. But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and I had a full team, and I'll tell you what, it was still absorbing. But
Yeah.
I love what you said is, as opposed to just planning and then not implementing or doing, and like you
Mhm.
said, just do it, like Nike says, just do it.
Yeah.
There needs to be ladies, all of you out there listening, there needs to be a little bit of planning, a little bit of preparing, not a
Right.
lot of planning and a lot of preparing that holds you back, because you're
Yeah.
missing on beautiful opportunities when you spend. It's like being off balance, so to speak,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
getting in and pushing your sleeves up, which comes back, Karyl, to those first impressions. I love women that show up and go, I'm new. I just launched this, and my hands they're perspiring. I've got all these sensations going on, and and they say that it lessens that, I want to say, edginess of that first impression, and just that starting off of all,
Hmm.
saying, I mean, think back to the first time you walked on a stage and delivered a signature keynote presentation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and think back about what was what was said, how much content you had. When you say that, my brain goes because I did something. Gosh, this was years ago now, and it was a 2-hour presentation, and there was so much content. And what I realized later, as I grew and I understood more about plotting and planning a little bit, right, is that really I probably had a good 3 to 4 presentations in that content. And had I broken it up and even done, a series of things, I would have been much better off, certainly, and they would have been much better off too. But that's part of do it and adjust, right? If you don't jump in and start, how do you know where to go? How do
I
you
love
know
it.
what to tweak, right? You have to be listening to what's said and what is not said amongst the people that you're working with or want to work with, and listen to what's landing with them and what's not landing with them, and then decide if you want to move forward with what's landing because that's a good thing, or if what's landing isn't what you really want to be doing. Here's another example. When I first started, my business was called Revision Style and Image. Well, I, in my infinite wisdom, put style first. And people kept thinking, oh, she's a stylist. She's a stylist.
Yeah.
Much to my disdain, because even though stylists are fantastic and much needed, that was not what I wanted to be known for. I wanted to be known for the whole image component, not just the appearance part of it. And so I learned very quickly that I needed to shift. But if I hadn't done that first, I wouldn't have known, right? So you learn and grow, but you have to do first.
You remember you sharing, you and I were on, I think we were either at an event or we were on a call or something. I remember you sharing that with me, that
Mhm.
disdain, and with that style and people and just
Yeah.
misleading all of that. But something, it's like you said, we have to start somewhere. And
Mhm.
Karyl, I'm still glancing down at your bio here. First of all, no wonder your marketing is so impeccable on social media, because of this management marketing and sales, which I had no idea about
Yeah.
that background of yours. And I'm looking at this going, oh, no wonder her marketing. So when did you take that leap from corporate into your own business? How long ago was that?
Oh gosh. Well, I left corporate when I was pregnant with my first son and did the stay-at-home mom thing and loved it. But I'm a worker bee. I love to work and I love to be with my people. So, I slowly got back into to doing some things part-time, actually doing marketing for a local hockey team, which was I loved it. I loved every minute of it. But again, I needed a little bit more. I needed a little bit more. I worked for a radio station in sales and advertising, loved it, but that was too much time spent away from my family. And so then I did go into my own business. I sold jewelry and loved that. But again, it just wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. And that's when this image consulting aha moment dropped in my lap. It was somebody else that also sold with me, and she opened up this business, and I watched her for a whole year. A whole year, I just watched, and I thought, this is it. This is something that's really cool. And in the meantime, behind the scenes, my life was shifting because my boys were getting older and they were going to be graduating from high school sooner than later. And I thought, gosh, it's going to be time for me to just do what I want to do, and I'll have the time. So I like I said, I watched her for a whole year, and then I actually went to my friends and said, this is my idea. And I went to my friends that have known me since high school, and that was really interesting because they know Karyl Morris. They also know Karyl Morris Eckerle, but they knew the me before the me, right? And what was happening too in the background is that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I made a list of everything that made me as Karyl Morris, and then also Karyl Morris Eckerle. So not just wife and mom and daughter, but me as the person. And everything just started coming together. And when I presented it to these old trusted friends of mine, they said, oh my gosh, that's totally you. That's totally you. So, it took off from there. I studied, I trained, I got certified, I did what I needed to do, and I built the business that worked for me. And I went slowly. And, here's a just do it moment, right? Yes, I watched for a whole year, but then when I decided to move forward, I moved pretty quickly. And my overall governing thought in my head was, I'm not going back to corporate. I refuse. I will make this work because I'm not going to go back to corporate. And so, the journey began. And like I said, I started slowly, purposefully, because I really wanted to be able to take the time to have my kids be first in my life. And everybody is different, right? So, everybody needs to do things their way to make it make sense. And that's what made sense for my family. So slowly, kids out of the house, here we go.
That's priceless, Karyl. What you just said is we need to do things based upon what is working for us, not because on social media coaches are saying you have to do this to build a six-figure business within 90 days with all these funnels and tunnels and drips, or you're going to have to step away from your children if you want to have a business, which is all BS. Because when I started in my business, I was full-time in corporate and I was doing my business on the side. And then it just finally blossomed, and I couldn't wait to get out of corporate. That was 100 years ago. That was a long time ago to that stuff. But we need to be doing things on our terms, on our terms. And even if it's something like going to our significant others, our partners, whatever, and saying, look, I want to start this business on the side without compromising the family structure. I was recording a podcast with a dear friend of mine yesterday, and she said to me, she goes, so what now today can women do to step into their bold voice? And the first thing came to my mind, because I get asked that question a lot, and it's not one thing. It's a whole cake of things. Values. Oh my God, know your values. And if your family is first, then it's adjusting for Karyl or for any other woman to be able to step in to herself and how that looks like, without going down that comparison path that a lot of us do. It's doing it on your terms.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you, I am incredibly competitive, and I fell into that comparison oh my God, hellhole, if you will, where I literally just had to stop following image consultants for a long time, not because what they brought to the table wasn't valuable. It was highly valuable, but I was getting so caught up in, oh my gosh, well, maybe I should do that, or I should do that, or could I possibly be doing this wrong? No, I was doing things differently, and I was doing things my way. And I realized that when I kept focused and I built people around me that were complementary to what I did, but not exactly what I did much better. But I think that's a huge thing to remember, is that you don't want to be cookie cutter. You don't want to be the same as everybody else. So even if, for some people, it's very, very beneficial to keep an eye on their competitors. It's very beneficial. And I do recommend that to a certain extent, but I also think that you have to look at and this is part of personal branding, you have to look at what you bring to the table, what's different that you do and you offer than your competitors, so that you can really highlight and showcase that and connect with the people that need you. Yeah. But that was a hard lesson for me to learn. That took a moment.
Yeah, there's that deep dark rabbit hole, and I talk about that deep dark rabbit hole, and that rabbit hole is filled, with that lack of confidence and that comparison. And yeah. I agree with you. I learned from other coaches what they're doing is similar to what I do, but they don't coach. It's like they don't do what I do. And same thing, Karyl, what you do, your competitors are not doing what you do, because first of all, they're not beautifully bold and robust like you with your personality. You're funny, you're compassionate, you embrace. I mean, you build. This is one of the reasons why you and I connected so fast. You build rapport like that, because I build rapport like that as well. And so with that being said, Karyl and I met 3 years ago.
Oh, it's more than that, because you forget COVID's in there. It's probably been 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Yes, 4 or 5. Yeah, right. I do forget about it. So 4 or 5 years ago at a conference, it was my first time attending this conference. Karyl, you had attended a couple of times. It's the Entrepreneur You. And I walked in, and my table was next to Karyl, and it was like, hi, I'm Kim Boudreaux-Smith. Hi, I'm Karyl Eckerle. And it was click. And I'm like, oh, you and I are going to have some fun today.
Yeah.
And lots of fun, and supporting, and, and we just have remained friends constantly. And I do want to say this, and I said this on when you re-recorded for your show, which has not been released yet. And I've got it sitting here, and I don't need to pull it up. I keep on my phone. Now, I don't keep all my text messages, because that stuff starts loading up. I hang on, Karyl, to your text message back when I can't remember even how you found out my father passed. And the message that brought me to tears, that meant the world to me, is on this phone.
Aww.
Is on this phone. And that's some true, deep, connected friendships. I mean, you and I are not going to lunch every week, and you and I are talking every week. And yes, I owe you a lunch. And yes, those are the deep connections that I embrace and I embody, from these. That's why I talk about community, ladies. And with your communities, it's like, I'm looking at the comments here, and when we first got on, and of course, Brenda Miller, everybody knows and loves Brenda Miller. She's saying, it's a fan club of the Kim and Karyl from Brenda, but I don't know if Brenda doesn't know this or not, but I mean, we're a fan club of Brenda.
Exactly.
And of course, and Lisa, I got to meet a couple of years ago back at the She Hive when we were all in person before the pandemic, and she's just been very influential as well. And there's a lot of other women on here today. Wendy, I was on her podcast, and it hasn't been released yet. And I met her on Instagram, and she's just she's an amazing friend. It's like, women, please gather up these, especially as we get older. Gather up these relationships and relish in them. So
100%.
Yes. Do you have your executive assistant in the office today?
Yeah. Oh, Casey. Did you hear? She's thinking it's lunchtime. Oh, here she comes. I don't know if you'll be able to see her, but
That's
for
the
those of you that have not met this thing that we call an assistant, she's a 90-pound Bouvier, and she's hungry right now.
Oh, yes. I guess it is getting close to that
Yeah.
time. I'm like, boy, it seems like my dogs just ate breakfast. Anyway, I love our executive assistants and I love working out of home, like
Yes.
being in the office. So Karyl, let's jump in here a little bit more. I'm just going to say this to you. So courage gives us a voice, compassion gives us an ear. That's by Brene Brown. I love
Mm,
Brown. And when have you had to really step that courage up in your voice, whether it's around clients, whether it's
mhm.
around with yourself, and to really lend yourself that ear of compassion?
Yeah. Oh gosh. The bold voice part will I would say one of the things that I have had to learn and had to train myself to do is to set boundaries.
Mm.
And earlier I talked about, when my company was called Revision Style and Image, and misconception about what I did, and those type of things. And the other thing that I hadn't honed in on quite yet was who I wanted to work with. So I worked with stay-at-home moms and I worked with retirees. Both are great sets of people, but they weren't necessarily my people. Anyway, fast forward, I took on a client and I really felt like I told her and explained to her what was going to happen. And then when we got into it, this was years ago, it wasn't happening. It wasn't working. And I had to have I call it a come to Jesus moment with her and really lay it out for her and get her feedback either into the process, come up with an adjustment to the process, or say we're not a good match and break ties. And it was really hard to do, but I was struggling with how I was feeling internally, and I knew that wasn't going to be beneficial for anybody. And I really had to find the courage within myself to have the conversation. I don't like confrontation. I like everyone to be happy, I like everyone to have fun. And that was a moment where I wasn't happy and we weren't having fun. And, I thought, boy, if she feels the way that I feel, we can't let this go. Something's got to be said. So that was a moment of courage for me that I have learned from and been able to carry through. And I'm thankful that I found that. It was not easy. And then compassion, I think that probably where I had to have some compassion for myself is when my mom got really, really sick. And when she, unfortunately passed away, I had to find the compassion to know that I couldn't do everything. And I had to have a little grace and space for myself. And that's why when you went through that, Kim, it was so important for me to make sure that you understood there was somebody, you know, beside you and thinking of you. It's hard. It's hard, especially, when we get to a certain age and our parents need us more, and we go through some things that we just don't even anticipate. And here we're trying to run a business, let alone a new business. And, things are always going to happen, and then COVID happened, I mean, there's always going to be something that's uncomfortable that you have to find the courage to step up to. And then you're going to have to give yourself the compassion, that grace and space to adjust and pivot and take the time to allow yourself to move forward in a way that makes sense for you and for those around you. Yeah.
Karyl, first of all, I'm going to be borrowing from you, and I'll give you full blown credit on grace and space because I do grit and grace, but because I don't want to grind anymore in my life. But that grace and space, it was
I'm
just
sure, by the way, I picked that up from somebody. I have no idea who, but it just resonated. And I mean, in the last couple of years, boy, that's felt like something that's been highly needed.
that all comes back around to that courage and that compassion and that grace and space and being a good coach, consultant, whatever word you want to place to it, and having that space to accept and meet where the clients are at. And if something is going haywire and misfiring, that's when, it's like, gosh, if I'm feeling that, then I can only imagine what the client is feeling.
Yeah.
Time, I love having, I'm with you, don't like those confrontations, but I've learned to enjoy them and embrace them.
Mm-hmm.
Finding that medium for everybody that is involved, and let's come to a win together situation, whether it's terminating the agreement or taking a left turn when we as
Yeah.
couples have been traveling right and we need to take a left turn.
Yeah. And you know what, when it comes down to it, it's not about you. It is about you, but it's not about you, right? I mean, when you have your own business, you need to make sure that the business is viable because the people that you're serving are reaching their goals and are happy with the performance. That being said, if it is such a struggle and it feels so bad to you, you need to make some adjustments, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. And it's okay. It's okay be making those adjustments as, like you said, or as we are going, as we are walking, as we one foot in front of the other and making adjustments along
Mm-hmm.
the way. It doesn't make us any less of a business person. It opens for that growth and that expansion, that
Yeah.
grace and
Yeah.
space, that grace and
Yeah.
space.
You know what? And it actually makes you a better business person, I think, because you're listening to what's being said and you're listening to what is not being said, and you're able to adjust and continue to serve and continue to move everybody forward. So I think everything that we do that doesn't go so well is the impetus for what we do well. Um yeah, another word that keeps coming up this week over and over is resiliency. That word, I don't even know when the last time I heard it was, but I've heard it 3 times this week, and I'm going to say it for the 4th time here. And I think as a business owner and as a woman in business and a female leader, you have got to be resilient. And part of being resilient is knowing that there's going to be some downfalls and some things that are hard, and saying, okay, but I've got this, and I can move forward. So you know what, even if you're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, you're still 1 step ahead of where you were before. And you've got to give yourself credit for that, and the resiliency to dig in and keep going. You've got this.
Yeah, exactly. We do. We need those resilience. And again, with the grace and space, that compassion where we're embracing ourselves, or maybe here, I just had this vision when you said, I've got this. I just saw myself standing up. I got this. And, doing, and playing Aerosmith or AC.
There you go.
I'm a really hard rocker. So all right, Karyl, what's up your sleeve? What's going on with the business that we can share with everybody?
Oh gosh. Well, one thing that I have that I love to share with people is I have an image impact assessment. It is a 15-question assessment. It takes you about 5-7 minutes. And yes, you do have to give your name and email address when you take it. Reason being is that because you're going to take it, and I'm going to come back and give you a 2-minute quick assessment of what I'm seeing. And then we have a chance to talk a little bit longer too. But it's broken down into 5 categories. So I talk a lot about finding your voice, being a visible, original, impactful, confident, go-to expert. And this assessment gives you a snapshot into where you are with that, the steps that you need to really be able to move forward on that. So that's one thing that's always available that I'd be happy to, I'll make sure that we've got a link for that. Another thing that I don't want to jinx it, but I'm very excited. I'm really ready to have my own space. And it seems maybe a little strange to have and want brick and mortar in a time like now, but I think it's so important. When I work with my clients, we're doing a lot of foundational pieces, and one of the foundations is also personal branding headshots. And if you are interested in the video component of things, we're doing videos. And I am really excited because this space that I'm looking for, may have found, will allow us to do all of that in one place. And I just, we talked about a sense of community. I feel that is so needed right now. And I'm so excited to be able to be part of that and to offer that to not only my clients, but friends of clients and, whomever. So networking, whatever. So cross your fingers, good mojo, everybody, that comes through. And, it just would be fantastic. I have a client coming in this afternoon. So I have clients come into the Detroit area from out of state, and it would be just really nice to have everything in one spot for them instead of,
Going
traveling around, which works well. And we've got a great system, but that would be just a notch above.
That's exciting. You'll have to keep me posted on that, please.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a large assumption. It's probably over on your area and your stomping ground.
Yes.
Traffic. You're about a good half-hour drive from me. You're not.
Yeah. So it's in the Northville, Plymouth area.
Good.
Yeah. So Metro Detroit, easy to get to.
Yep.
And again, crossing fingers.
I love it.
I'm asking for good mojo instead of my jinxing it before it happens.
Mojo and juju. We want right. Mojo and good juju. We're gonna let's just sprinkle Karyl with that today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, keep me posted on that. So let's wrap up here. Karyl, your last bold words that you could leave with all our listeners today.
Oh, goodness. Invest in yourself. There is no better investment than investing in you. You are the foundation. You are the foundation for the business. Your image is your business. I believe that so strongly that I trademarked that saying. Your image is your business. Take a look at what you want people to remember about you. Here's an exercise that I do with my clients. Pick 1 to 3 words, adjectives that describe you, that are you're non-negotiable. You walk into a room and you walk back out. What do you want people to remember about you? And then use that as your check and balance, as your I am statement, your instant message to others. Let that be your foundation so that when you get dressed in the morning, you're reflecting that. When you post something, you reflect that. When you take your photos, you reflect that. When you get on video, you reflect that. Consistency, confidence, clarity, credibility. There's a lot of C's that go into it, but you have got to invest in yourself to do that. You can invest in yourself and hire a pro to help you, or you can invest yourself by, going and, doing some research on Google, but just take the time to do it. It does matter. How you show up matters. Take time and write the story so that it's your story, not that somebody else is creating one because they don't have any cues from you.
Yeah, I agree, Karyl. It's create that story and have it hanging on index cards on them. We're women in front of the mirror. We're in front of the mirror doing our hair, putting makeup on, and otherwise, that inner critic will she ramps up every single time.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to push that comfort zone. She just ramps up. We want her there, but we don't want her dominating us, Karyl. Yeah. Karyl will put on the link of the show where you can download on her website the questionnaire. I think I did that a long time ago, but I maybe need to revisit that again.
Perfect. Love it.
I always like to stay on top of what Karyl is offering to keep me on top of my business as well. So before we close out, Karyl, first of all, thank you for joining me today. I so appreciate that. And I was not going to do this in season 2. I did this in every episode of season 1, and I'm doing this in every single episode. I love this. I close out with bold. Be bold enough to listen to your heart and more so to follow it. Your heart has always known exactly who you are, what you are made of, and what you are made for. Your heart has always known that you were meant for so much more and that you deserve to live feeling free. Start listening to your heart. It has always known the way, and that is by walk the earth. And I love
that's beautiful.
That.
Beautiful.
Know the way and do it on your terms. So thank you, everybody. I see everybody that is logged in. I thank all of you. Karyl and I will swing around and answer any comments or anything at some point in time within the next 24 to 48 hours. And I thank everybody for joining us today. And Karyl, Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh gosh, Kim, my pleasure. And thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it. To everyone watching, thank you for joining us. I am a big proponent of LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I would love that. And feel free to shoot me any questions that you have or put them here in the comments and we'll get back to you.
Yes, please connect with Karyl if you're not already connected on LinkedIn. And also, too, everybody that is commenting on LinkedIn, ladies, if you're not connected with each other in those comments,
Yeah.
jump connect because I love LinkedIn. Love LinkedIn. All right. Thank you, everybody. Make
All right.
it a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.